Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag. I'm Jared Johnson, and I'm doing this a little late on Friday, but man, there are a lot of questions, so I want to dive into those here in a second. But first, of course, I want to mention go to Red Raider Outfitter for all your double T needs. Great gear like this Dark Horse polo I'm wearing right here. Of course, the pirate hat. I hope all y'all swing your sword this weekend. Have a great weekend. And with that, let's dive right into these questions. First one comes from RaiderGrad06, who wants to know, were all the media completely unaware of and surprised to find out that Baron Morton has a hairline fracture on his fibula, as announced during the broadcast? And do I think it was kept under wraps so as to keep opponents in the dark or some other reason? Well, first off, no, I wasn't surprised. I can't speak for the rest of the media, but I'm definitely not going to just throw out injuries into the public sphere, just because. Why is that going to, just to be like, oh, I got this info, it's not going to help, Texas Tech. So I don't know if it was intentionally kept in the dark or if it was just, it's private. That's his own, that's Baron's health. I mean, you're still updating the status saying he's questionable or he's out or all those things without, specifically mentioning exactly what it was. And, Coach had said it was his shin. He had an injury, and it was a recurring thing. He also had an oblique injury at some point too. But no, I wasn't surprised. I think I would be surprised if a lot of the folks in the local media were surprised. But just because you have info doesn't mean you should just go run and shout it, from the mountaintops. This job is more about knowing what info and when to share it. Some of the best stories I've ever had went unwritten or untold. That's part of the responsibility of doing what we do. Now, not everybody follows that. I can't speak for everybody or what they know, but I can't say that I knew it was a hairline fracture. I knew it was a significant injury. Now, hairline fracture, I got hairline fractures all over my body at this point. My foot, my hand, all kinds of things. I'm not saying they're not painful, because they are, and I'm not trying to downgrade them. But that's the gist, to answer your question. From Syntex says, Tech didn't kick a field goal before half, and they had a couple of long bombs on third and short when the receivers were butterfingers. Is the D masking some offensive coaching problems? Well, first off, I'm going to say something that I know a lot of Tech fans aren't going to like. I actually am a fan of what Coach Mac Lefwitz has done for the most part, with one exception. The fact that he didn't make, and I don't know if it was him or Will Hammond making certain reads, but the fact that they didn't force the ball to Jacoby and Cam Dickey at Arizona State, I think was a major reason why they lost that game. Maybe the biggest reason. That and the fact that Tech couldn't get on all those fumbles. And you got to give Arizona State credit as well. They definitely do that. But going away from Cam Dickey and Jacoby Williams, and I've said it millions of times on here, is just a huge, huge mistake, and that will get Texas Tech beat. It did in Tempe. And other than that, though, I think Mac Lefwitz, I've really liked his offense. I think it's been, I really like that play. I even asked him about it on Monday, that long Jacoby run, that toss to the outside. I really liked the way he used motion to kick out the edge there, or I don't know if it was the safety or the edge, but just the blocking scheme with that. And it's part of the whole staff coming up with that, not just Mac, but it was a good call in that moment. And it was really good. It's a perfect example of getting a talented player in a position where he can thrive in that perimeter run. And that's not to say Jacoby can't run between the tackles, but when you're running zone, you're running counters a lot. And I love, to me, that's the bread and butter, the counter. Tech's counter when they're pulling guys with both running backs is pretty lethal. But that little variation with that little toss, that pin and pull toss they did to spring Jacoby was great. And the passing game, there's been a lot of guys open, guys that were missed. Or they were found and they dropped the ball. But to be honest, the receivers also made some plays, even like last week. Coy Aiken made a great catch that could have been intercepted. It was a throw between the zone. He came back to the ball, and that was an explosive play. Cameron Douglas also, or Caleb Douglas. I don't know why I said Cam. Caleb Douglas also had a really nice toe touch touchdown where he high pointed the ball. So it's not all bad. But if I had to say, do I think there's a coaching problem? No. The only thing I've seen other than what I already mentioned about the running game against Arizona State, or even just not getting them those two guys enough touches, even if it was in the passing game, would be not having the silent count when you went to Utah. Now look, they won by 24, 25 points. So I'm a bottom line kind of guy, but it's hard to criticize that too much when you go beat a team by 3 touchdowns. The vaunted Utah football team that's impossible to beat in Rice-Eccles, and you go in there and hand it to them. But that was inexcusable, and they fixed that. They had the silent count available, but that was like a file away thing, in terms of like, okay, that's crazy they didn't have that going into that stadium. And then the not kicking, I was like furious when they didn't kick the field goal at the time, at the end of the first half, the way your defense was dominating and all that. And I'm not buying the whole get the team out of their scheme, because their scheme wasn't working. You want to keep them in that scheme that produced 0 points. That being said, too many times I feel like coach scared, and that was an aggressive play. And I think there was something of like wanting to disprove that narrative. And they were frustrated because Coy Aiken had dropped a pass that was wide open, and Barron even protected him by throwing it kind of mid. So in case a DB came flying or linebacker came flying in, it was a perfect pass. And, Coy just dropped it. So I think there was some frustration at play there. I still wish they would have taken the points, obviously in hindsight, knowing they didn't get it. But no, I'm not. Look, this team is 9-1. It's not perfect. It does have some struggles, some of the ones you mentioned, and those aggressive plays, those deep balls. Barron usually has a better idea of the game flow. He's good at that. But that being said, that was probably his read. You get those tall. That's why you have those tall receivers, to have those jump balls. But maybe after it didn't work once or twice, you go away from it. Try and take the sure thing if you can. I don't have a problem with him getting these playmakers an opportunity to make plays. It did work a couple of times. It didn't work some others. The best thing is there are some things to improve on, despite having just smoked BYU 29-7 the way you did. And you were up 26-0 before BYU was scored. So this team can get better. Will they? I don't know. Is this what they are? That's something Joe and I talked about earlier in an earlier video this week. We'll see if they can fix it or not. Syntax Red Raider says, did Tech flip a recruiter too this past weekend? Nope. Ford and Smith, neither one of them even made it on the visit. London Smith, the receiver, Ford out of Duncanville, the Florida edge. Neither one of them even made it to town. So, needless to say, they didn't flip them. Get Your Ass to Mars says, which school is trying to recruit McGuire the hardest? I don't know. And honestly, I'm unconcerned about it. Look, I don't want to sound naive, but McGuire is probably the most genuine coach I've ever covered at any sport at any level. He reiterated just last week that he plans on dying as a Red Raider, hopefully not soon. He's built this culture. He has financial backing, like unparalleled financial backing here. They just built this palace, the football resort as they call it. I mean, everything is set up for him here. And, he gets the culture. His daughter graduated from there. His best friend went to, played for Tech. Why would he leave? It's not like Tech's going to be outbid or whatever. Like somebody's going to be able to pay him more than Tech. I'm unconcerned about this. And it doesn't matter who comes in and tries to recruit McGuire. Raider Fan 01 says, is Morton in love with the long ball, several times thrown into coverage on third down for an incompletion when the short receiver was open for the first down? Yeah, look, Barron didn't have a great game last week, and he said it himself. But, he wasn't terrible. I'm going to get into it more because there's several questions about Morton. But, I don't think it was just some terrible game, especially considering the injury. He did make some plays with his arm, but there are some things again that they can fix. Perhaps he was too aggressive on some of those passes, but some of those passes, and when you say coverage, I would have to be more specific. I'm not saying he didn't. There were some times he did that, but there were also some times he had one-on-one matchups with bigger receivers against smaller cornerbacks. So, they've stated many times. This is one of the most explosive offenses in the country, by the way. But they've stated many times that they want to throw deep, and if they weren't, then we'd be, why are they throwing deep? Why is this such a mediocre offense in that way? Why can't they try and go deep? So they just got to be more efficient when they do so. The timing should probably be better, but that's my answer. Mass Tech says he's heard rumblings that there might be players who are classified as seniors that might be able to come back for a year. I'm not talking about Zambrano. Any updates on who those players would be? Yeah, they're not rumblings. It was on the video. It was in the Monday press conference. McGuire brought it up. So it's not, it's a thing. It's not just a rumor or rumblings. And he mentioned Reggie Virgil and Skylar Gill-Howard, that neither one of them have redshirted. That if the 5-for-5 goes through with the NCAA. Now, the NCAA, I have no idea why, but shot it down. Like, I even started a thread on the board saying, NCAA, why are you the way that you are? Because it would just streamline and simplify so many things for college sports in general and college football if they just did this 5-for-5. It just makes too much sense, I guess, for the NCAA to do it. But there are, of course, after they shot it down, they said no, there's all these lawsuits, so we'll have to wait and see how these court hearings go. I'm not a lawyer, so it's beyond me, but it seems like it makes sense. McGuire and he's been guilty of being overly optimistic, but he seems to be very optimistic that it will go through and in time so that these guys can get that fifth-year eligibility, which would be great. In any of the cases that want to stay here, the players that want to stay here, and players that Tech wants to return. But Skylar Gill-Howard would be amazing for his leadership, obviously what a great football player he is and all that, and that would be really cool. Padres 11 says, could Sheridan Wilson be moved to a guard position next year and Cash be the center? Yeah, that could happen. I don't believe that's the plan right now, but it's a long time till next year. They like Sheridan Wilson at center, and they like Cash at guard. He's been playing some left guard anyways. Will Jados has dealt with some injuries, and then I know Mac Lepwitz at least, and maybe McGuire too, has said Cash has earned that playing time with the way he's practiced. So he's going to be in the mix at guard. He might be the right guard, or might be might be one of those guards next year. And but I'm not going to say there's no way he won't be the center. I don't believe that's the plan as we stand here today. But it's a possibility. 93 Red says, is there any chance Gill-Howard is back for this year for the playoffs? If not, is there any chance he could get a medical redshirt? I don't think the medical redshirt's in play. I think he's played 6 games. He's played too much. But yeah, that is the plan. And I don't mind y'all asking. I reported that when he got hurt, like literally the day after. I talked to a very good source who said, they don't know yet, but the plan is the hope is that he could come back for the playoffs. And then SGH said it himself. He was kind of the tour guide for that Snapback Sports video, and he actually said playoffs this year in terms of when he could come back. So how effective he would be, whether he'd be in shape, all those things, I have no idea. AJ Holmes has been very good in replacing him, but needless to say, for depth, for the leadership, all those things, I really love SGH's motor and quickness. He has another element to that defensive line, so it'd be great if he came back. OBX Raider says, well, how great the running back room has been. What do you think will happen when the running back that came with the running back that came from USC? Yeah, Quentin Joyner, who was at least going to be 1 or 1A or 1B with Cam Dickey as the 1-2 combo running back. And the plan was really more for Jacoby to be a scat back, line out receiver, play some inside receiver, be the primary punt returner, kick returner, and I love him. And all like you can't get Jacoby the ball enough for my sake, in my opinion. But I think that could be the way it plays out again next year. I know Quentin's younger brother, or I don't know if it's his younger, but his brother came in and he's been playing like running the scout team running back a lot. So it's not like there's bad blood between them or anything like that. I do think they could use, like there's been times where I think like maybe even the Arizona State game where like they were a little hesitant to use both the running backs so much because Jacoby was banged up. I think he had like an ankle injury. And then Cam Dickey, just how much can you give him and rely on him? So it would help to have another back for sure, and especially somebody of Quentin Joyner's caliber, who, like I said, I think was expected to be the lead dog going into the season. So imagine how great that running back room would have been if he hadn't suffered that non-contact ACL tear just prior to the season. So that's how I think it would play out very much like it was going to this year, assuming that Q is right and the rehab goes well and then his knee's good. Tech Freak says, how was the board meeting, or does what happens at the board meeting stay at the board meeting? Well, it depends on the board meeting. This was a low-key, chill board meeting the Friday before the BYU game. So it's not like we were going like shot. We weren't going to do that kind of thing. But there was about 7 or 8 of us that got together at walk-ons, and it was a really, really great get-together. I really enjoyed it. I was looking forward to it a lot. I wasn't planning on staying as long as I did, but the company was just that good. I'm not kissing ass. I really mean that. You fellas know who you are, who I hung out with. Big shout out to all of them. Intel Pro and I stayed. We were the last ones to kind of close it down before it was like, okay, big game tomorrow. Our women, what are they going to say? All that. It was time to go. But got to see Pitbull, captain my captain, of course, who ran RaiderPower.com for a long time and was the producer of Red Raider football for 43 years. He's just a freaking legend. It was really great to catch up with him and everybody. I can name everybody, but everybody, was really great to put some faces with names, and we had some we all had strong opinions, of course. There's some really cool stories that came from that board meeting. Like somebody beat the crap out of Rudy in high school football that was there. That was pretty cool. I don't think I'll forget that. But we plan if I'm not jinxing it, if Texas Tech goes to the Big 12 championship, then we'll do another one in Arlington, and I expect probably a bigger turnout for that. But man, it was good times. I don't think I've ever regretted a board meeting, and I certainly didn't regret the one last week. Let It Fly says, another Baron Morton question. What is Baron Morton's best statistic and worst statistic as a QB? There's a pretty dang good defensive coordinator who said stats are for losers. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but instead of looking up this stat or that stat, I'll tell you what I like the most about Baron and what I feel like I'm kind of alarmed hasn't improved more. I'll give you 2 of each. One, obviously, this is an intangible, but his toughness and leadership factor are just off the charts with Baron Morton. Just off the charts. And then I also like how efficient he's been in terms of not turning the ball over. I don't want to jinx that, but so I'll knock on wood. But if you look at his numbers the last 2 years, he's been terrific in terms of taking care of the ball. And with this defense and special teams and running game, that's exactly what you want out of your quarterback. Now, it'd be great if he was throwing for 500 yards and all that, but it doesn't appear to be in the cards for a number of factors that we've already discussed. But I really like those 2 aspects of Barron. I'll throw in a bonus too. He's been pretty clutch when called upon. Like that game at Iowa State where he converted 2 or 3 fourth downs on a drive they had to have to win was huge. And there's been a couple of other instances, but he's pretty clutch. Now, what I don't like that I'm kind of alarmed with is that I don't feel like he sees the field. I think going back to one of the questions, he missed some underneath receivers. I don't always feel like he sees the field all that great, especially for a guy as experienced as him. It's not that he doesn't go off his reads. He will come off his reads, but I just feel like he should be a little bit better with that at this stage of his career. And also his pocket presence, while it's gotten better, even last week, he ran into at least 2 of those sacks where there was a good pocket. All he had to do was sit in the pocket, He got nervous, faded out a little bit. It ran into sacks. So, it's something he's aware of. He's admitted. All the coaches have talked about. But those two things, should be better at this stage of his career. So that's my best attempt at answering your question. LB Man says, BYU game and the Big 12 championship game day tickets are around $400. Is this the new normal? He's priced out. Yeah, when there's a high demand, the prices are going to go up. I mean, whether it's Tech or anybody else. Like, I remember that happened with the Mavericks. I grew up, Mav fan for life there in the Metroplex, going to games for almost, you couldn't give them away. My parents had season tickets for, business reasons to entertain clients and stuff, but they couldn't use them because nobody wanted to go to Mav games unless Michael Jordan was in town or something like that. And then all of a sudden, they were still kind of affordable when they started getting better. But then it just was like, do you want to go on vacation this summer or do you want to go to a Mav game one night? It was crazy, like for good seats anyways. But the demand was there. And the demand is there with Tech football now, so the price is going to go up. I am sorry. I really am. That is a part of it. But it is a part of it, and it's not just with Tech. It's with everything that's in high demand that goes up in demand. BJ's My Hero says, what's the deal with Roy Alexander? Yeah, good question. He says, he was a big get, supposed to be a safety valve slot guy. Is he really hurt? 3 catches on this year after 100 this year before is shocking. You know what? I honestly haven't checked on Roy since early in the season. And maybe I should have before this mailbag, but there was a lot of questions I forgot about Roy. But my hope is that he gets a medical redshirt and is able to come back. But I don't even know that he's still for sure injured. I just feel like he did get injured early, put him behind, and he hadn't been able to make a ground and see the field. So I'm hoping he's able to come back next year, have a full off season with Texas Tech, get better, and be perhaps even a difference maker as a slot guy for the Red Raiders. So, well, that's going to do it. We've gone for over 20 minutes this mailbag, but hey, a lot of fun, great questions from y'all as always, and I really appreciate it. Don't forget to go to Red Raider Outfitter for all your Texas Tech merchandise. For now, I want to thank you for watching.